Today, we'll be demonstrating Signal's integration with CrowdStrike to showcase how our modern privileged identity management protects your critical systems in real time. In this demo, I'm going to show you how Signal secures cloud infrastructure by immediately revoking privileged access when CrowdStrike detects security threats. In today's era of persistent identity attacks, high-risk standing access is a serious threat to critical enterprise systems. Session hijacking, credential theft, and phishing are leading to countless breaches. In 2023, there was a 72% increase in the number of data compromises over the previous high in 2022, and security and identity teams have lacked the proper tools to proactively monitor and manage the impacts. Extended detection and response, or XDR systems, like CrowdStrike, detect threats such as credential theft, malware, or suspicious activity on a network. While CrowdStrike excels at detecting and responding to advanced threats, it alone doesn't address privileged access risks once an identity is breached. Thus, standing privileges and delayed response times to threat detection can leave critical systems and data vulnerable. Signal complements CrowdStrike by enforcing dynamic, real-time access controls, stopping attackers from using compromised identities to move laterally across systems. CrowdStrike handles threat detection, while Signal prevents unauthorized access from escalating. Continuous Access Evaluation, or CAEP, offers a standardized way for systems to continuously share user and access updates for improved security. With Signal's CAEP Hub, Signal ingests live incident data from CrowdStrike, evaluates the data against customers' authorization policies, then enables actions on the incident data, such as immediately revoking access to sensitive systems like AWS, Okta, ServiceNow, and Slack. Take a fictitious company called Wholesale Chips, for instance. Wholesale Chips uses Okta, an identity provider, to federate their employees' access to AWS, where they store sensitive data, virtual machines, and more. They also use CrowdStrike to detect threats in their ecosystem, such as malware or credential theft. Wholesale Chips is a prime example of an organization that can enhance their authorization through Signal. With Signal, they're able to grant dynamic access to AWS by validating that access using data from systems of record like Okta and ServiceNow to determine if the right user is requesting access at the right time. Furthermore, when CrowdStrike detects a risky event, Signal automatically revokes the affected user's access to sensitive applications like AWS, helping organizations achieve zero standing privilege. Here is the Signal dashboard for Wholesale Chips. Signal integrates with systems of record such as Okta, ServiceNow, and CrowdStrike to centralize critical business context. We can then create human-readable policies in Signal that apply that business context to automatically inform real-time access events. Clicking into CrowdStrike, you can see that Signal is ingesting data on users, endpoints, and incidents in CrowdStrike. Now, let's see how those systems of record can help protect your critical systems in Signal, which we call protected systems. Signal can enable conditional access for your cloud infrastructure, code pipelines, and customer data. In this demo, we'll focus just on the AWS use case. With our systems of record and protected systems in place, let's look at Signal policies in action to see how we can restrict access to AWS to users with significant business justification. Going into the policies here attached to AWS, we can see that there are two policies assigned. The first one here, or emergency infrastructure changes, says that engineering users can access production assets if they have an active emergency change assigned, which means that access to production assets is restricted to users who have an active, approved emergency ServiceNow change assigned to them. The second one, deny access to compromised identities, says that all users are denied access to any assets once their identity is compromised. Let's click into this policy to see what it means. In this condition, identity being compromised, we can see that this means when a CrowdStrike incident is associated with a user. Now, with these two policies in place, let's see what happens when an engineer from Wholesale Chips, Alex, attempts to access AWS. Here is Alex's Okta's apps dashboard. Let's see what happens if Alex attempts to access AWS. We can see here that Alex has been denied access from Signal. What's happened here is that Signal has successfully configured AWS permissions to deny access for a user who did not have business justification to sign in. We'll now see how we can use Signal to figure out why Alex was denied access. To do so, we can use the Signal Policy Lens tool, where we can examine Alex's access decision against the policies and individual policy snippets assigned to our AWS protected system. You can see here that this query is set up to be the access decision that we just made, where Alex is attempting to access AWS. Looking at the policies here, we can see in the compromised identities policy that Alex's identity was not compromised, as you can see here from this condition not being a match. So this policy is not the reason why he was denied access. Instead, clicking into the emergency access policy, we can see that he was denied access because he did not have an active ServiceNow change assigned to him. With that, let's now come over to ServiceNow and assign Alex the change that he needs to access AWS. As you can see here, this is an emergency change with a high priority, it's approved, and it's assigned to Alex. Jumping back over to Okta, we can now give signing into AWS another try. Now that Alex has been assigned the relevant ServiceNow change, we can see that he has been allowed access to AWS. Now, even though Alex was compliant with policy when he signed into AWS according to our Signal policies, things could change. By default, AWS sessions are 8 hours long, which is short compared to many systems that maintain sessions for days or even weeks without checking if access is still valid. But what happens if CrowdStrike detects suspicious behavior or malware regarding Alex? In many situations, Alex would retain access to AWS, even when it poses a serious security risk for him to do so. But with Signal, we can act upon CrowdStrike's incident detection and revoke access to AWS. To do this, inside of Signal's CAEP hub, we've set up a rule called CrowdStrike Incident Response. In this, we can see that when a CrowdStrike incident occurs, we're going to take several actions. We're going to sign users out of AWS, we're going to send a Slack message to the security operations team, and lastly, we're going to also revoke them out of ServiceNow. To demonstrate this rule in action, let's go into our CrowdStrike system of record within Signal and enable syncing on the incident to pull in the incident data from CrowdStrike. Going into the Signal Data Lens tool, we can see the information available in the Signal graph. Here, we are filtering for Alex's user information, and you can see that he has an incident associated with him from CrowdStrike, flagging him as compromised. What we expect is that now that the CrowdStrike incident is in the Signal system, Alex's AWS session will be immediately revoked. Giving this just a few seconds, clicking around in AWS, we'll see that Alex's access is revoked in real time. He can no longer access information like user data or EC2 instances. Going into ServiceNow, we can see that Alex has also been signed out here. In Slack, we can see that we have a message informing security about Alex's identity compromise. In Signal's CAEP hub, we can see that we have actions fired here, specifically that the CrowdStrike incident trigger was set off, which resulted in Alex being logged out of AWS and ServiceNow. Thus, leveraging CAEP protocols, Signal can, in real time, eliminate user permissions from live sessions or future sessions of a user in response to a detected identity threat from CrowdStrike. Beyond this, recall that we have a policy that access is denied if a user's identity is compromised according to CrowdStrike. Thus, if Alex tries to log into AWS again through Okta, he'll be denied access. Let's take a look and see that in action. As we can see here, Signal has continued to block off Alex's access until the incident is fully resolved, minimizing risk of further exploitation during the breach. Signal centralizes auditing for all access decisions across protected systems through our access logs. We see our access decisions logged here, as well as our CAEP actions logged here. As you've seen through this demo, Signal integrates with CrowdStrike to holistically defend your most critical systems against identity threats. By leveraging CrowdStrike's threat detection, Signal ensures that any security incidents are immediately followed by actions like access revocation, drastically reducing the blast radius of data breaches caused by compromised identities. For more information on how Signal can help your organization secure critical systems with context-driven policies, visit signal.ai.